The massive holographic star map dominated the center of the council chamber, its blue light casting eerie shadows across the worried faces of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. Admiral Kyo pressed his crystalline hand against the control panel, and dozens of red markers appeared across the display, each one representing a world that had fallen to the Kethmari horde in the past 2 years. The Zephyrian Admiral's bioluminescent patches, normally a steady blue glow, flickered weakly as he studied the latest reports. His species had not known true fear for over 1,000 years. Watching entire star systems disappear from their communication networks had awakened. It's something primal in their ancient minds. System 47 has gone dark, announced Lieutenant Zolthek from his monitoring station. His voice carried the flat tone that all council personnel had adopted when delivering bad news. There had been too much of it lately. Last transmission indicated Kethmari landing craft breaching the planetary defense grid. Counselor Valantha's meditation sphere drifted closer to the holographic display, her silver tentacles twitching with nervous energy. The Altarian had lived for 3 centuries and served on the council for half that time. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for an enemy like this. How many civilians? She asked, though she already knew the answer would be devastating. Preliminary estimates suggest 8 billion inhabitants, Zolthek replied. The planet was primarily agricultural, with minimal military presence. Chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the life support systems. 8 billion lives snuffed out in a matter of hours. Added to the countless trillions already lost to the Kethmari advance, the numbers had become so large they felt abstract, but each council member knew that behind every statistic were real beings with hopes, dreams, and families. Admiral Kyo turned away from the display, his luminescent patches now pulsing with frustrated anger. Our fleets are useless against them. Every time we engage, they adapt our tactics within hours. It's as if they understand warfare in ways we've forgotten. Because they do, said Dr. Velkorin, the council's chief xenobiologist, as he shuffled forward on his 6 legs. The elderly Vorthan rarely spoke during military briefings, preferring to observe and analyze, but the desperation in the room had finally drawn him out. We've been studying the Kethmari for months now, analyzing every piece of battlefield footage we can recover. He activated his personal holoprojector, and images of the enemy filled the space above the conference table. The Kethmari were terrible to behold, insectoid creatures standing nearly 3 meters tall, with razor-sharp claws and mandibles that could tear through standard armor plating. But it wasn't their physical prowess that made them so dangerous. Look, at their tactics, Dr. Velkorin continued, highlighting specific battle sequences. They don't fight for territory or resources like most species. They fight for the pure joy of conquest, the thrill of destroying something beautiful and claiming it as their own. War isn't their profession, it's their religion. Counselor Valanth tentacles stopped their nervous twitching as she processed this information. You're saying they're naturally aggressive? More than that, the xenobiologist replied. They've evolved specifically for warfare. Every aspect of their society, from their breeding patterns to their technological development, is focused on creating better warriors. They don't maintain a military. They are a military. The implications hung heavy in the air. The councils. Member species had long ago evolved beyond such primitive instincts, developing sophisticated cultures based on cooperation, scientific advancement, and peaceful coexistence. Their military forces were primarily for peacekeeping operations and the occasional border dispute, not for fighting a species that lived and breathed conquest. There must be something we can do, Admiral Kyo said, though his words lacked conviction. Some weakness we can exploit. Dr. Velkorin was quiet for a long moment, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the holographic display. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. There might be. The survey teams have been cataloging primitive species throughout the Outer Rim, looking for potential new council members. One world in particular has caught my attention. He manipulated the controls, and the star map zoomed in on a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. They call it Earth, and its dominant species refers to themselves as humans. Technologically, they're centuries behind us. They haven't even achieved interstellar travel. but their history, the display filled with images that made several council members recoil in horror. Massive armies clashing across open fields, weapons of unimaginable destructive power, entire cities reduced to rubble. The humans seem to have spent their entire existence finding new and creative ways to kill each other. They've been at war for their entire recorded history, Dr. Valcorin explained. Not the ritualized conflicts we occasionally see among developing species, but total warfare, the complete destruction of their enemies. They fight not for honor or glory, but for survival itself. Counselor Velenth's meditation sphere trembled slightly. You're suggesting we contact these savages? I'm suggesting we give evolution's perfect warriors the tools they need to do what they do best. The xenobiologist replied calmly. The Kethmari understands war because they live it, but humans were born for it. The air in the United Nations Assembly Hall shimmered like heat waves rising from hot pavement. And then something impossible happened. A figure began to take shape in the empty space above the speaker's podium, tall, elegant, with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. The being's body pulsed with soft blue light that grew brighter as more delegates noticed what was happening. Several security guards reached for their weapons, but their hands froze as they realized bullets would be useless against something that wasn't entirely solid. The figure raised one graceful hand, and suddenly every person in the room could hear his voice speaking in their native language. It's clear as if he were standing right beside them. Please do not be afraid, the being said, his voice carrying a strange musical quality. I am Ambassador Jinwoo of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps. I have traveled many light years to speak with the leaders of Earth. President Hyunwoo of the Korean Federation was the first to recover from the shock. The old soldier had seen enough impossible things during his military career that even alien contact couldn't shake his composure completely. He stood slowly, his gray eyes never leaving the strange visitor. Well, this is certainly unexpected, Hyunwoo said, his voice steady, despite the chaos erupting around him. Other delegates were shouting questions, demanding explanations, or simply staring in stunned silence. I assume you have identification to prove you're not some advanced hologram or military experiment. Jinwoo's crystalline features shifted. In what might have been a smile. He had studied human expressions for weeks, but their faces still seemed impossibly complex compared to his own species. I understand your skepticism. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than words. The ambassador gestured toward the large viewing screen at the front of the assembly hall. The screen flickered to life, showing an image that made every person in the room gasp in wonder. Earth hung in the darkness of space like a blue jewel. But surrounding it was something that had never been there before, a massive ship that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. My vessel is currently in orbit around your planet, Jinwoo explained. Your military tracking systems detected it 3 hours ago, though they were unable to identify its nature. I chose to reveal myself now because time is running short. Defense. Minister Sunhae leaned forward in her seat, her mind already calculating the implications. If this being could build ships that large and remain undetected until they chose to reveal themselves, then humanity was dealing with technology far beyond their understanding. Time is running short for what? She asked. The ambassador's light dimmed slightly, and for the first time the humans in the room sensed sadness from the alien visitor. My people, along with 11 other advanced civilizations, form what we call the Galactic Council. For thousands of years, we have maintained peace across countless star systems. But now, we face an enemy that threatens to destroy everything we have built. Images began flowing across the viewing screen, alien cities burning under dark skies, massive ships locked in battle among the stars, and creatures that looked like nightmares made real. The Kethmari were shown in all their terrifying glory. 3 meters tall, covered in black chitin armor, with claws that could tear through metal and eyes that held no mercy. They call themselves the Kethmari Horde, Jinwoo continued. In the past 2 years, they have conquered 47 star systems. Billions of innocent beings have died or been enslaved. Our combined fleets cannot stop them because we have forgotten how to truly fight. President Huno studied the images carefully, his military experience helping him understand the tactical situation even without detailed briefings. Your technology appears superior to theirs. But how are they winning? Because they understand something we have lost, the ambassador replied. War is not just about having better weapons or faster ships. It is about having the will to do whatever is necessary to win. My people and our allies developed beyond such thinking long ago. We fight to minimize casualties and preserve infrastructure. Kethmari fight to completely destroy their enemies. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. These advanced aliens with technology that seemed like magic to human eyes were losing a war because they had become too civilized to fight it properly. What exactly are you asking of us? Defense Minister Sun Hai inquired, though she suspected. She already knew the answer. Jinwu's form became more solid, and suddenly he was standing on the floor of the assembly hall rather than floating above it. He walked slowly among the delegates, and they could see their reflections in his crystalline skin. We are asking you to do what your species has always done, he said simply. Fight. Your entire history is one of constant warfare. You have spent thousands of years finding new ways to defeat your enemies. You understand combat in ways we have forgotten. The ambassador stopped in front of a large world map that hung on the chamber wall. In return for your help, we offer you the stars themselves. Technology that will end disease, poverty, and want on your world. Ships that can carry you to other planets. The chance to join a galactic civilization as equals, not subjects. You want us to be your soldiers, President, Hyunwoo said, stating the obvious. We want you to be our salvation, Jinwoo corrected. The question is, are you willing to fight for a galaxy you've never seen, to save people you've never met? What? Purple mist hung thick in the air of the ruined Kethmari outpost. Carrying the metallic smell of alien blood and burning electronics, Commander Minjae pressed herself against the twisted metal of what used to be a communications tower. Her breathing steady despite the chaos that had erupted just minutes before. Through her rifle scope, she watched the enemy patrol moving down the main street with the kind of confidence that came from never losing a battle. The Kethmari warriors stood 3 meters tall, their black shells gleaming in the alien sun. Weapons held at perfect angles that would have impressed any military academy instructor back on Earth. They're walking like they own the place. She whispered into her throat microphone, watching the aliens maintain their textbook formation. 3 heavy assault troops in the center, 6 lighter infantry spread out in a protective pattern that looked impressive but left them vulnerable to crossfire. That's because they think they do, came the reply from Lieutenant Ji-hoon, his voice crackling through the comm system. His squad had spent the last hour crawling through the rubble to reach their position on the north side of the street. Ready when you are, Ghost Leader? Minjae smiled grimly as she watched the patrol draw closer to the kill zone. The Kethmari moved with the precision of a species that had conquered 47 star systems. But they moved like conquerors, not like soldiers expecting a fight. That was their first mistake. The second mistake was assuming humans would fight. Like the other council species, with honor following rules, giving warnings before attacks, Minjae had read the tactical reports from previous battles. The Zephyrians would announce their presence and demand surrender. Altarians would attempt to minimize casualties even at the cost of tactical advantage. The other council species fought wars like they were playing chess carefully, methodically, following ancient traditions. Humans played to win. Execute, she whispered. The attack began with the improvised explosive devices that Corporal Daeyoon had hidden in the rubble 3 hours earlier. The blasts weren't powerful enough to kill the heavily armored Kethmari, but they didn't need to be. They were designed to confuse, to separate, to make the enemy react instead of think, as the patrol scattered from the explosions. Minja's rifle barked 3 times in rapid succession. Each shot found its mark in the weak points of Kethmari, armor that human intelligence had identified through careful study of previous battles. The aliens' own technology had revealed their vulnerabilities when human engineers reverse-engineered captured equipment. Lieutenant Ji-hoon's squad opened fire from their concealed positions, their weapons spitting streams of energy that had been modified with human ingenuity. The aliens had expected human weapons to be primitive, chemical-based projectiles that their armor could easily deflect. Instead, They faced energy weapons that had been enhanced with techniques the Council species had never considered. The battle lasted exactly 47 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 6 Kethmari lay dead, and 3 others had surrendered, something that would have been unthinkable just months ago, when the aliens still believed themselves invincible. But what happened next disturbed the surviving Kethmari. More than the attack itself, instead of celebrating their victory or honoring their fallen enemies, the humans immediately began stripping useful equipment from the corpses. They photographed the battle site, collected shell casings, and analyzed the aliens' tactical responses with the cold efficiency of scientists studying lab specimens. "Sir, we need to get this equipment back to intelligence," reported Sergeant Kung-Su, holding up a Kethmari communication device. "They'll want to study the encryption patterns." Min-jae nodded, already moving toward the next objective. There was no time to waste on ceremonies or speeches. Every minute they delayed gave the enemy time to adapt, to learn, to become harder. To kill next time? High above the planet's surface, Captain Yoonji watched the battle through her ship's sensors from the command deck of the Taekwondo. The vessel had been a simple cargo hauler 6 months ago, designed to carry grain and manufactured goods between Earth's colonies. Now it bristled with weapons that made Kethmari warship commanders break out in stress-induced molting patterns. "Ma'am, we're receiving another transmission from the fortress," reported Ensign Minji, her fingers dancing across the communication controls. "They want to discuss terms." Yunji almost laughed. It was the 3rd surrender request in an hour each, one more desperate than the last. The Kethmari fortress had been designed to withstand traditional siege warfare, but the humans had simply ignored the fortifications and struck at the supply lines, communication networks, and psychological weak points that previous enemies had never thought to target. "Put their commander on screen," she ordered. The image that appeared on the main display was of a Kethmari war chief whose scarred carapace trembled with barely contained rage. His mandibles clicked in the rhythm that human intelligence had. Identified as extreme frustration, "Your species fights without honor," the war chief snarled, his words translated by the ship's computer. "You use deception and trickery like cowards hiding in shadows." Captain Yoonji leaned back in her command chair, her expression calm despite the alien's obvious fury. "We use whatever works. Honor is something you can afford when you're winning. We're here to make sure you stop winning." The Council's other species were predictable, the war chief continued. "They followed patterns, maintained formations, warned us before attacking. We fight like wild animals with no sense of proper warfare," Yanji corrected, her smile visible even through the translation matrix. "We fight like humans. There's a difference." The crystal walls of Ambassador Jinwoo's meditation chamber pulsed with nervous energy as he floated in the zero-gravity environment, his bioluminescent patches flickering between blue and amber, a color pattern that indicated deep worry among his people. The emergency session had been called for the 3rd time this month, and each meeting brought more disturbing news about their human allies through the transparent walls. He could see other council members arriving at the Great Assembly Station, their various ships creating a rainbow of lights against the starfield. But unlike the usual calm dignity of council gatherings, there was an urgency in their movements that spoke of growing panic. The main chamber was already buzzing with worried conversations when Jinwoo entered. Counselor Valantha's meditation sphere bobbed frantically near the central holographic display, her silver tentacles writhing in patterns that would have been considered rude in normal circumstances. The Altarian diplomat had lived for 3 centuries and served on the council for half that time, but the stress of recent events had clearly taken its toll. "The situation is far worse than we initially reported," she announced as soon as the session began. "Human expansion shows no signs of slowing. They now control 17 star systems that were formerly Kethmari territory, and they're establishing permanent colonies on every habitable world they encounter." Admiral Kyo's crystalline form shifted to a deep red color as he processed this information. "We asked them to defeat the Kethmari, not to replace them. Our mandate was supposed to be temporary military assistance, not permanent occupation." The holographic display filled with star charts showing the rapid spread of human influence across the galaxy. Red dots marked human settlements, blue lines showed their trade routes, and green areas indicated worlds where human administrators had taken control of local governments. The pattern was clear and alarming. Humanity was building an empire. "It gets worse," continued the intelligence officer, a nervous Vorthin whose multiple eyes darted between the assembled council members. "We're receiving reports of alien populations voluntarily joining human settlements. The Regelian colony ship Harmony officially defected to human space last week, claiming they preferred what they called human-style democracy to traditional council governance." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. The Regelians had been loyal council members for over 500 years, known for their peaceful nature and dedication to scientific research. If they were abandoning the Council for Human Leadership, what did that say about humanity's growing influence? "How is this possible?" asked Counselor Zarthik, his insectoid features clicking with agitation. "We offered them technology and membership. In our civilization, why would they choose primitive humans over our advanced society?" Ambassador Jinwoo had been dreading this question, but he knew the answer from his own observations during the first contact negotiations. Because humans offer something we never considered giving them: a voice in their own government. Every world under human control has been transformed into what they call a constitutional democracy, where citizens can vote for their leaders and participate in making laws. The concept was so alien to most council members that several asked for clarification. Their own societies had been stable for millennia precisely because they followed ancient traditions and hierarchies. The idea of letting common citizens make important decisions seemed chaotic and dangerous. "But surely they understand their role was temporary," insisted Admiral Keogh. "They were meant to be our military contractors, not our replacements." "I attempted to communicate this to Colonel Sunho just last week," Valenth replied, her tentacles now completely still, a sign of deep depression among her people. Her response was ... illuminating. She thanked me for what she called humanity's galactic awakening, and assured me that they would take good care of their new responsibilities. The implications of those words hit the council members like a physical blow. The humans weren't just ignoring their original mandate, they were actively claiming permanent authority over the territories they had liberated. And worse, they seemed to believe they were doing everyone a favor. "General Yongho has formally requested permission to establish a permanent military base in the Altera system," reported the intelligence officer. "He claims it's necessary for regional security. But our analysts believe it's the first step toward claiming the entire sector." Ginwoo felt his crystalline structure resonating with stress harmonics that made his entire body sing with discordant notes. The Altair system was one of the Council's most important industrial centers, home to the shipyards that built their exploration vessels and the research stations that developed new technologies. If humans gained control of Altair, they would have access to everything they needed to become completely independent of Council oversight. "What are our options?" asked Admiral Kaio, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer would be unpleasant. Counselor Valentha's response sent a chill through every member present. "We may need to consider whether the cure has become worse than the disease. The Kathmari wanted to conquer us, but they would have left our governmental structures intact. The humans are transforming everything they touch." The chamber fell, silent as the full scope of their mistake became clear. They had sought to create a weapon against their enemies, but instead had unleashed something far more dangerous. A species that viewed the galaxy not as a collection of ancient hierarchies, to be preserved, but as a frontier to be transformed according to their own principles. Outside the chamber windows, the stars continued their eternal dance. Indifferent to the crisis unfolding among the civilizations that claimed to rule them, the massive viewport of the battleship Sejong offered a perfect view of the surrender. Taking place in the space around Altair Prime's crystal moon, Fleet Admiral Sujin pressed her hand against the cool metal bulkhead and watched as the last Council Loyalist ships powered down their weapons and began broadcasting white surrender codes on all frequencies. It had taken exactly 18 standard days for what the history books would call the Liberation War to end. But Sujin knew the real victory hadn't come from superior firepower or better tactics. It had come from something much simpler and more powerful, the idea that people should have a say in how they were governed. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission," reported Communications Officer Hyun-jun from his station near the bridges. "Center." The young man's voice carried a note of amazement that he couldn't quite hide. "This time it's from the Zephorian Home Fleet. They want to discuss terms for joining the new government." Sujin nodded but didn't turn away from the viewport. Below her, the crystal moon of Altair Prime gleamed like a jewel in the system's pale sunlight. 5 years ago, she had been flying cargo runs between Earth's orbital stations hauling supplies and equipment for the construction crews building humanity's first space colonies. The idea that she would one day command fleets spanning dozens of star systems would have seemed like pure fantasy. "Put them through to the conference room," she instructed. "Make sure the translation systems are working properly. We want to make sure there are no misunderstandings." The irony of the situation wasn't lost on her. The Galactic Council had been absolutely right when they said Earth would be the solution to their problems. They had simply failed to understand what their real problem was. They thought they were facing a military threat from the Kethmari horde. But the true danger had been something much more fundamental. A civilization that had grown so comfortable with its ancient power structures that it had forgotten how to change and grow. As she walked toward the conference room, Sujin passed through sections of the ship where humans and aliens worked side by side. A Rigelian engineer was explaining quantum mechanics to a human technician, while nearby a team of Altarian scientists collaborated with Earth researchers on improved shield generators. The sight still amazed her every time she saw it. "Admiral, the delegation is ready," announced Lieutenant Commander Taeyong as she entered the conference room. The holographic display showed 3 Zephyrian representatives floating in their characteristic meditation poses, their crystalline bodies pulsing with the blue light that indicated cautious hope. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," said the lead Zephirian, his words translated into perfect Korean by the ship's computer. "We wish to discuss our people's integration into your new governmental structure." Sujin took her seat at the head of the conference table, surrounded by representatives from a dozen different species. The diversity would have been impossible. Under the old council system, where only the most ancient and powerful civilizations had been allowed to participate in galactic governance. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to make sure you understand what you're asking for. We're not offering membership in a human empire. We're offering the chance to help build something that's never existed before. A truly democratic galactic government where every species has a voice." The Zephirian's light patterns shifted to curious yellow. "We have studied your governmental models extensively. This concept of democracy is ... unusual. Citizens choosing their own leaders seems chaotic and inefficient." "It is chaotic," Sujin admitted with a smile. "Democracy is messy, loud, and sometimes frustrating. But it's also the only system that allows civilizations to adapt and grow instead of becoming stagnant. Your council ruled the galaxy for thousands of years without changing. And that's exactly why the Kethmari were able to defeat you so easily." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The assembled aliens had all lived under hierarchical systems where change came slowly, if at all. The idea that chaos and disagreement could actually make a government stronger was revolutionary. "How do you prevent the less advanced species from making poor decisions?" asked another Zephyrian representative. "By making sure everyone has access to education and information," replied Dr. Minji, the human representative for scientific affairs. "Democracy only works when citizens can make informed choices. It's why every world in our coalition has free schools, open communication networks, and transparent government processes." Negotiations continued for hours, but Sujin's attention kept drifting back to the viewport and the view of space beyond. Somewhere out there, human exploration fleets were pushing into uncharted regions of the galaxy, carrying with them the radical idea that any species, no matter how primitive or advanced, might hold the key to solving problems that others couldn't even see. The old council had seen the galaxy as a collection of established territories to be managed and preserved. Humanity saw it as a frontier full of possibilities, where new ideas could emerge from the most unexpected sources. The Kethmari had been defeated not by superior weapons or ancient wisdom, but by the simple human belief that there was always a better way to do things. As the surrender ceremonies concluded, and the last council loyalists formally joined the New Galactic Federation, Sujin reflected on humanity's strange journey from a small blue planet to the catalyst for galactic revolution. The stars had always been there, waiting for someone brave enough to believe that the future could be better than the past.